Hello everyone, this is part 11 of What If Naruto Was Reborn as a Shinigami, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist. To see more, comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. It was a rare day off for Naruto and Tenten, and they had decided to spend it training on his new hammer in the morning and then goofing off the rest of the day. Naruto was somewhat annoyed that he had to retrain slightly in his dance with the hammer, due to it having more spikes, but he was managing. Tenten leaned against a tree, enjoying the view of a shirtless Naruto grumbling because he kept dragging the spikes against the ground. She was about to get up and tell him to call it a day when she caught a blob of pink out of the corner of her eye and frowned. It was their day off, what could Kakashi want with them now? Naruto stopped his dance and wiped the sweat from his brow. He'd been at it since he and Tenten arrived and he was ready for a bit of fun. He had planned on taking Tenten to dinner in the next town over and maybe even catch a movie or just have a nice quiet walk. He just wanted to relax. As he was slipping his shirt back on, he saw the grimace on his girlfriend's face and saw Sakura walking slowly toward them. Well, there goes my good mood. Sakura was nervous as all get out. She'd asked Sasuke on numerous dates when she was younger and had gotten used to rejection. She'd gotten stronger as the apprentice of the Hokage. She'd been reassigned to Team Kakashi when Naruto came back from his training trip and had been ecstatic to see him. She'd been devastated when she learned of his status as a Jinchuriki and that it couldn't be extracted without killing him. She'd even told him that she'd save Sasuke for him, not that he remembered that. But underneath it all, she wanted Sasuke back more. She didn't want to see Naruto killed because of it, but he'd made a promise to her and she expected him to keep his promises. Naruto didn't seem concerned about whether he lived or SD anymore, so after a while she just stopped caring as well. She fell back into her illusions about Sasuke easily since she wasn't doting on Naruto. She'd nearly lost his friendship several times in her life, but she'd never come so close as she had now. Sakura hated to grovel and beg, she'd done it too many times in her life. And here she stood, ready to ask for forgiveness. The only question was whether or not he'd accept her apology. She didn't really know where to begin as she stood before the two, her face downcast, her hair falling over her eyes so they couldn't see them. Tenten was beginning to get impatient with her and Naruto looked disinterested. Tenten's patience finally ran thin. What are you doing here, Sakura? Naruto and I have places to be. Sakura slowly raised her head to look at them and inhaled a deep breath. I need to talk to Naruto. Well, say what you gotta say. Me and Tenten are hungry. I need to talk to you, in private. Tenten and Naruto both frowned. Whatever she wanted to talk about couldn't be good. You can say what you need to say to me in front of Tenten. I have no secrets with her. Sakura's eyes began to tear and she looked at him with soulful eyes. Please Naruto, I can't ask you this in front of her. Naruto turned to Tenten, who shrugged and sat down against the tree again with her arms and legs crossed. He turned back to Sakura, not at all happy. You've got 5 minutes. That's it and the clock is ticking. She nodded vigorously and motioned for him to walk a little further away, under a shade tree. He complied and stood with his hands in his pockets, waiting for her to begin. Sakura burned up the first minute of her time limit wondering how to begin. Unfortunately for her, Naruto wasn't kidding about a time limit and was now tapping his foot in rhythm with his heartbeat. Sakura, I'm waiting. Deciding to jump in headfirst, Sakura did the only thing she could think of. Naruto, I'm sorry. Do what? I'm sorry. I'm sorry for how I've acted, I'm sorry for how Kakashi-sensei and I have been treating you, and I'm sorry that I took your friendship for granted. Can you forgive me? Naruto eyed her suspiciously. What do you hope to gain out of this, Sakura? Her mouth hung open in shock and she suddenly became very angry. How dare he insinuate that she was only doing this with an alternative motive? Well, I only wanted to apologize, Naruto. I just wanted things to be the way they were when you came back from your training TS. I want things to be okay between us. He looked away from her to where Tenten was sitting and sighed. I don't think that things can ever be the way they were before, Sakura. I've matured and you seem to have progressively gone back into your fangirl stage. It's not a thing that can be fixed overnight or with a simple apology. She turned her eyes back toward the ground and spoke softly. So what do I have to do to prove that I'm genuine then? Admit that chasing after Sasuke is not a top priority. Admit that he is not the be-all, end-all to men. Stop chasing after a shadow and find something attainable. Do these things and then we'll talk about forgiveness. Time's up. Sakura nodded her head slowly and began to trek back to her apartment. She had a lot to think about. Tenten stood and crept slowly to the blonde as he watched Sakura fade into the horizon. She gently wrapped her arms around his waist from behind and laid her chin on his shoulder. What's the matter, babe? He smiled back at her and put his hands over hers. Nothing's wrong. Sakura tried to apologize and I told her what she needed to do before I'd accept her apology. Would you forgive her? If she was genuinely sorry, yes, I would. But only if she meets my criteria and I believe her. Tenten sighed and buried her face in his back, inhaling his scent. She scrunched her nose and put her chin back on his shoulder. You're more forgiving than me, Naruto, and you stink. I'm not going out with you smelling like Lee's jockstrap after training with Guy Sensei. Naruto got that mischievous look in his eyes and turned around so he was facing Tenten, his arms wrapped around her so she couldn't get away. He put his mouth close to her ear and whispered very softly. And how would you know what Lee's jockstrap smells like, Ten-chan? Tenten turned bright red and tried to wiggle out of his arms, but to no avail. Summoning up her righteous anger, she pushed as far away from him as possible. You know damn well that I don't know what that thing smells like. Now let me go. Naruto smirked and pulled her closer. No. Let me go, Naruto. Let me go. Or what? Or all. Before she could get going, Naruto latched his lips onto hers and left her head spinning from the sheer magnitude of the kiss. As he pulled away, he took note of the dazed look in her eyes. Tenten held onto his shoulders so she wouldn't collapse. Wow. Tenten glared at him and shrugged away from him. She crossed her arms and turned away. Ass. You always use that against me. Not my fault it works. Besides, you enjoy it as much as me, if not more. Shut up and let's go home. You need to get cleaned up before we go eat. So do you, jockstrap girl. Naruto ran ahead laughing as Tenten pulled a staff from nowhere and began swinging at him, shrieking at the top of her lungs. I'll K you, Naruto. Like he'd never heard that threat before. They finally made it back to her apartment once she calmed down and forced him to carry her back. Naruto walked into her room and dumped her on the bed unceremoniously. Since Her Majesty insists that I stink, I'll take a shower first. No peeking. Tenten glared up at him from her pillow half-heartedly. It was hard to be angry at the perpetually upbeat ninja. What happened to lasses first? Naruto shrugged and took off his shirt. I never subscribed to that philosophy, especially when those ladies can kick my ass. Tenten grinned cheekily. So you're saying I'm better than you? From the bathroom, Naruto yelled back. No, I'm saying you can kick my ass, but only because I love you. You better be glad you're in the shower or I would kick your ass. When she heard no response, she growled and began to lay her clothes out. She knew that they'd be traveling fast, so she opted for casual comfort. In reality, she just wanted to be comfortable while he carried her. She smiled when Naruto emerged from her bathroom clad only in a towel. It was hard not to jump him right there. Finished already? Yeah, I'm done. Do I have any clothes left over here? They're in the upper left drawer. I washed them for you. Thanks, Ten-chan. You better hurry and wash up quick. We need to get going. Naruto whistled to himself as he got dressed. He'd forgotten that he had this particular getup. A white muscle shirt with khaki pants and a denim jacket were meticulously folded in Tenten's dresser. He sighed as he shrugged on the jacket. He'd had to buy this one when he couldn't wrest his leather jacket away from his girl. He'd tried hard to get it back too. Naruto knew better than to be in the room when Tenten was getting dressed. Even though they were several months into a relationship and neither of them were modest around one another, they hadn't taken their relationship quite to that level yet. Both wanted to, but neither was willing to be the one that offered first. They wanted their first times to be memorable after all. He flopped down on the couch and looked around. Her apartment had become a second home to him and hers. He chuckled at that. Tenten had come over to his apartment and had totally renovated it. He now sported various weapons on all his walls and had somehow acquired a half closet full of women's clothing. He nearly SD laughing when he recalled what he'd done with that clothing. Tenten sat on the couch in Naruto's living room, flipping through a magazine, waiting for him to get ready so they could go eat. She heard him come down the hall and dropped the magazine when she saw him. Naruto smirked when he saw her face and struck a provocative pose. He knew that this would get a reaction out of her. Messing with Tenten was one of his hobbies now. He decided to use his Oiroke no Jutsu and put on some of her clothes. He really liked the outfit she'd worn on one of their first dates and slipped it on. Unfortunately, he was a bit bigger in the chest area than her and a full-length shirt now showed some midriff. What he wasn't expecting was her reaction. Tenten leapt out of her seat and strode forward like she had a purpose. She grabbed him by the ponytails and planted a kiss on his lips and didn't let go for nearly a full minute. When they both came up for air, she grinned at him and put her hand on his stomach while she leaned over toward his ear. She nipped it lightly and whispered to him, "You look hot in that, but so help me, if you stretched out one of my favorite shirts." That threat was left open, but he came out of that shirt quickly and Tenten fainted from her perverted thoughts. He'd never thought she had it in her. His shoulders were shaking from the memories and he didn't notice her slip behind him and leap over the back of the couch to land in his lap. He let out a loud grunt and wrapped his arms around her waist. "What were you thinking about? That time I put on your clothes and used my Oiroke no Jutsu to get a reaction out of you." Her cheeks took on a crimson hue and she buried her face into his shoulder. "Yeah, I remember that. You looked really hot. Pervert. I'm surrounded by perverts. Hypocrite. I agree." Naruto groaned when he heard the familiar voice and didn't even bother to open his eyes. "Go away, Sanosuke. I was having a good time, don't ruin today for me. Please. I just have some news to tell you." "Oh sure, thanks, ruin the mood. There goes my perfect day." Sanosuke smacked his charge on the back of the head and scowled at him. "What the hell was that for? You giving me another dose of smarts?" "No, I'm smacking you for being a smartass. Now pay attention." Naruto clenched Tenten a little more tightly and she wrapped her arms around his neck. He leaned back in his seat and sighed. "Okay, go ahead." Sanosuke groaned and ran his hand down his face. "You're such a petulant child. Listen, your final gift will manifest soon, but it won't happen until you experience extreme emotional stress." "What is it? Now where's the fun in telling? Haven't I told you before that I'm not going to tell you beforehand? Although, there will be one final change before the gift can be accessed. And that is, come on man, I'm hungry and Ten-chan gets grumpy when she's hungry." Whipped. Your eyes. I'm sorry. Your eyes, you idiot. Your eyes are going to complete their transformation soon. You still have as of yet to tell me exactly why my eyes are turning silver. Sanosuke sighed for what seemed the millionth time and rubbed the bridge of his nose. "You don't listen at all, do you? Remember last time when Kami herself told you that eyes are the portals to the soul? That they can contain power? Yeah. Well, yours don't contain power, but they are an indicator of where you stand as far as your gifts go. Plus they make a most effective intimidator if you push a little chakra into them. Seriously, you've never tried it?" Naruto shook his head and began to shove chakra to his eyes. Tenten leaned back so she could see and gasped when the silver of his eyes began to glow. She reached a hesitant hand up to his cheek to turn his face so she could see better. "So pretty." Sanosuke scoffed and folded his arms. "Leave it to the crazy, weapon-loving girlfriend to think glowing eyeballs are pretty. Wait until you see his last gift. You'll probably squeal like a fangirl and scream, kawaii." Her answer was to chuck a kunai through his chest without looking back, continuing to stare into Naruto's eyes. Sanosuke grunted and pulled out the offending weapon, dropping it to the ground. "You know, you two are the ruination of more sets of my clothing. Are you done here, Angel? Naruto and I would like to go eat at some point." "Fine, be like that. Go eat. Do whatever you want. Ungrateful little bastards." The angel disappeared and Naruto rose with Tenten in his arms and pulled the chakra from his eyes. She odd and began to pout. "Now Tenten, don't be like that. It makes you seem like a little girl. Where's your jacket? It'll be cold later on. She wriggled out of his arms and came back a moment later zipping the overly large, for her, jacket on. Ready now. Where we going? I was thinking of that new joint in the next town over. They're supposed to have a good selection and a really good chef. Naruto waited as she locked her door before scooping her into his arms again and adjusting her weight appropriately. I'm still going to get that jacket back one day. Not likely. The people of Konoha moved out of the way quickly as they saw a yellow blur heading their way. It had become a common sight for Naruto and Tenten to blow through the streets on the way to one of their weekly outings, and most had learned to get out of the way when they heard him coming. Of course, there were still those who saw this as a chance to trip up the demon brat. Naruto and Tenten had become used to the fools that tried to cause them harm and knew when to leap or duck. A particularly bitter old woman was sweeping her porch and saw them coming. She maneuvered herself so that she could take a swipe at his feet with the broom and growled as he leapt over her. Her frown quickly turned into a grin when she saw one of her cohorts had positioned his wagon of fruit so that Naruto would land on it. Naruto thought quickly and let his chain unravel to wrap around an electrical pole, swinging him and his girl out of danger. Tenten squealed loudly as he landed and nearly choked him with the iron grip on his N. Once he pried her loose, he turned to face the old woman and both teens glared at the older folks. What the hell is your problem, lady? I didn't do anything to you to warrant trying to trip me. You little brat. You think you can talk to me like that? Yeah, I do. You tried to trip me on purpose. What if I'd fallen and hurt Ten-chan? That whore deserves to be hurt if she's fallen under your spell. Naruto started toward her only to be pinched by Tenten on the arm. He looked down at her in dismay and she shook her head. No, Naruto, you know you can't. It will only lead to more trouble. But Ten-chan, she called you a whore. I can't let that go. I know what she called me, Naruto, but I know it's not true. I know it and you know it. Let's go eat, okay? He huffed angrily and turned back around. He wasn't leaving without having the final word, however. You're lucky she's a kind lady. I'd rather just break your hip for talking bad about someone who I consider an angel. Tenten really is too nice for her own good. Naruto ran onward toward the neighboring town silently as he held Tenten. The jovial mood had been somewhat dampened and she hoped that by the time they got to the restaurant, he'd have calmed down somewhat. She hated that every time they just went out, they got hassled in Konoha. Outside the village, it was a paradise for them. They could walk about like a couple without fear of persecution. Sometimes, she wondered if it wouldn't be worth moving to another village, or at least outside the village to a neighboring town. Her thoughts were broken as he stopped right outside the town and sat her down. She put her arm around his waist as his settled on her shoulders. So, dinner first or movie first? I think we should watch the movie first, maybe calm our nerves a bit. After that little episode, I'm not all that hungry. Tenten nodded her head and they walked to the theater and chose their movie. For some reason, it always seemed that a Princess Yuki film was playing and they always watched those. They never really watched the movies, just reveled in the anonymity and closeness that the theater brought them. It was one of few public places where they could just be themselves around others. Tenten sighed happily as she leaned into him and let herself nod off to sleep. He'd wake her up when the show was over. For Naruto, times like these were blessed moments. Just relaxing, no angry villages, no tense moments with his team, no life-threatening jutsus. Just him and Tenten, alone in their own little world. Naruto shook her awake gently and chuckled when she yawned and stretched. All right, let's go eat. I think you've had enough sleep. Was the movie any good? They're all the same. They were nearly at the restaurant when 4 ninjas hopped out of the shadows and surrounded them. Naruto grit his teeth and moved his hand towards his tattoo. Tenten produced 2 kunai from nowhere, as is her custom, and they stood back to back. The leader of the group stepped forward and spoke. Uzumaki Naruto, by order of my lord, you are to come with us. Resist and we'll kill the girl. Naruto sighed and moved his hand away from his tattoo. Judging by their headbands, he assumed that they had been sent by Orochimaru. Doesn't Orochimaru have a dossier on me? The ninjas looked puzzled and nodded. And you were all briefed before coming here, correct? More nods. Then what in Kami's name makes you think that I'm just going to go with you? I'm not going anywhere without a fight. The leader shook his head and settled into a stance. The people of the village were all well versed in ninja fights and had moved to safer ground. Naruto charged a Rasengan in his hand and whispered to Tenten. Don't get hurt, okay? You either. They both leapt into battle. Naruto thrust the Rasengan forward and hit the shorter ninja he was fighting in the gut, putting him out of the battle immediately. He turned to the taller ninja and grinned. It's just you and me now, big boy. You don't know how much this is helping me relieve my stress. Tenten was really enjoying herself at the moment. She needed this, she really did. She didn't have any of her big weapons with her, but with a near-limitless supply of senbon needles and kunai at her disposal, she wasn't helpless. One ninja had already been taken out with a kunai to the T and she was very disappointed with him. She'd expected it to be a shadow clone or a genjutsu at least, but it had been the real deal. This second one better be a better fighter, or a better dodger at least. She put some senbon between her fingers and let them fly. She grinned when she saw him dodge. At least he had talent in that. Naruto was struggling against his opponent more than he expected. Although the first ninja had been weak, his new opponent was no slouch. Naruto had yet to bring out either of his toys since he wanted to try to keep his other abilities fresh and sharpened. He hadn't realized he was so out of shape. He'd been relying on his hammer and chain too much. Come on, Uzumaki, what has happened to the infamous god of the hammer? Where is this massive chunk of steel I hear so much about? Where is your chain? Where is my true enemy? Naruto frowned and ducked another punch while he blocked a kick to his side. I wanted to fight without those today. I have other skills, you know. The Oto ninja laughed at him and began to make some hand signs. Don't insult me, boy. You have no other skills besides those. My lord must be insane to think you can help him achieve power. Naruto growled and moved his hand to his tattoo. Fine. Since this is what you want, then so be it. Let it be on your own head. Remembering what Sanosuke had said earlier, he pushed chakra into his eyes and watched with satisfaction as the Oto ninja gasped and moved back a step. That, a dojutsu was not in the files. What the hell is that? A genjutsu. Kai. Naruto merely stood and waited for the ninja to stop his futile attempts to halt a genjutsu that wasn't there. What does that dojutsu do? Naruto grinned and pulled his hammer from the seal. Wouldn't you like to know? Tenten huffed angrily and crossed her arms as her opponent fell to the ground, NLD by senbon. She hadn't come close to working out her aggression and decided that they should bring back at least one enemy for questioning. Ibiki would appreciate the gesture. She turned to watch Naruto's fight and her brow knitted when she saw he had gotten the tougher foe. He always got the challenges when they fought battles. It was getting somewhat annoying. Naruto was enjoying himself immensely. He wasn't quite as proficient with this new hammer as he was with his old one, but he was coming along. The Oto ninja was backpedaling quickly and was noticeably scared of the power he had in the hammer. Naruto decided he had had enough fun with his foe and put the hammer back in the seal. The ninja stopped and eyed him warily. What are you planning, Uzumaki? I'm bored. I'm tired of this game. It's time for you to come along to Konoha with me. And how do you hope to accomplish that? Like this. Before the man could move, he was hit from behind and knocked out cold by Naruto's chain. Naruto sighed and heaved him to his shoulder. He turned to see Tenten had her own bundle, as his chain crept back around his waist. So, you still want to get something to eat or just head back? Are you kidding, Naruto? I'm starving. Let's just send these two back to Ibiki and Anko for questioning and get some grub. Okay. We're filthy now though, so I don't think we can get in a good restaurant. That's fine, I wasn't feeling up to a fancy place anyway. Now do something about this trash. Right away, my queen. Shut up. Grumpy when we're hungry, aren't we? Naruto didn't wait for her retort and summoned an extra large toad. It landed on a house and lifted its foot. That hurt. Who summoned me to this rathole? Jiraiya or Naruto? That'd be me, Naruto. What do you need, boy? I need you to deliver these 4 to Ibiki and Konoha. Can you do that for me? Hi, I can. I expect 10 bottles of sake as payment when you call me again. Very well. I'll have payment for you soon. Please do. The toad slurped the 4 up into his mouth and winced. They tath lithe it. Naruto howled with laughter and put an arm around Tenten's shoulders. As they walked away, he called out to the toad. I'll throw in another 2 bottles because of the taste. The toad thought he could put up with the taste for a little while. Naruto and Tenten arrived home late and flopped onto the couch. Neither one wanted to move and both decided while a shower sounded lovely, the couch was too comfortable. She fell asleep on top of him and he stroked her hair, making her purr in her slumber. He felt a wet spot form on his chest and rolled his eyes. He'd complain about the drool in the morning. A lone figure knelt before a seat in a darkened hall. It bowed its head and spoke in a low voice. The bid to capture Uzumaki Naruto was a failure. Our ninja were captured instead and are now in the possession of Konoha. The figure in the chair chuckled and leaned back, steepling its fingers. It doesn't matter. I only gave the Junin of the group enough information to let Uzumaki know that I'm after him. A warning shot, if you will. Is there anything else? Yes. It appears that Uzumaki has unlocked a dojutsu. His eyes turned silver during the fight and glowed unnaturally. I have no idea what it does, however. I didn't hear what he said, being so far away from the fight. The figure in the chair nodded and waved its hand in dismissal. The poor ninja that was reporting clutched at his tea and fell over. A poison senbon lodged in his trachea. The figure in the chair laughed and sat forward, its arms resting on its knees, red eyes seeming to glow in the light of the one torch. Soon Uzumaki, soon. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.